Hey, welcome back to my channel where we help online entrepreneurs and digital nomads start and scale their online service-based businesses, as well as give you a deeper look behind the scenes of someone who does this full time, me. Now, chances are, if you click through to this video, you're probably wondering how to use VAs, aka virtual assistants, for your business. Now, the world has been shifting towards remote work, online entrepreneurship, and anything that's based online in the gig economy for a long time. And this was only sped up due to the coronavirus this past year and a half.
We're under quarantine.
Now, virtual assistants have been around for quite some time. However, it's just starting to become mainstream. And it's right now or never when you start learning how to use them and integrate them in your business, not only to cut your margins by quite a bit, but to also delegate slash automate tasks that are probably a burden on your day-to-day. In today's video, we're going to discuss 4 things when it comes to virtual assistants. Number 1, what kind of VAs there are. Number 2, where to find those VAs. Number 3, how to hire those VAs. And number 4, how to manage VAs. Let's start with number 1, the kinds of VAs. Now, I'm going to break this category down into 3 different sections, mainly because I've hired VAs from these countries and also where a majority of VAs tend to get hired from. So the big 3 are from A, Eastern Europe, B, from India slash Pakistan, around that South Asian area, and number 3, Philippines. Let's go ahead and break down each of those 3 places. Number 1, Eastern Europe. And I'm going to give you the pros and cons of each of these specific areas in the world. So Eastern Europe, Ukraine being my personal favorite, is full of fantastic virtual assistants that are self-starters, usually entrepreneurial, and can really work for themselves without much direction. They're great at web development, coding, graphic design, video editing. They've got a host of skills for you to choose from. They're amazing people. They're very kind-hearted people, and they're very loyal to the business that they decide to work with. However, some cons, depending on the way you look at it, and especially for startup, this might be a little bit more difficult. They're a little bit more expensive than the other 2 areas in the world. They're probably run somewhere between $5 to $9 an hour, and especially if you're doing something along the lines of web development or coding, they can go even higher than that. Then, of course, there's a time difference, especially if you're living in the US or Canada. Now, if you're in that side of the world, it's not really that important. However, it can get in the way, especially if you have American clients and then VAs in Eastern Europe, where you might be taking meetings later at night or earlier in the morning. However, this is an issue that I'm going to mention with all 3 places today. So depending on the way you look at it, you can't have your cake and eat it too, at least in the case of VAs. Now, the second place that I want to talk about in terms of finding a VA is India. India is full of vibrant culture, incredible people, hardworking people that are self-starters, tend to be entrepreneurial, and can do a wide variety of things from coding and web development to graphic design, video editing, any sort of creative or tech pursuit that your business is looking to scale with. On top of that, they're actually generally cheaper than Eastern Europeans. I paid Indians as low as $3 when I was first starting out, and most Indians that I pay today don't really pay much more than $5 to $6 an hour. Now, the cons when it comes to hiring people from India can be good or bad depending on how you look at it. Of course, this is a generalist statement. I'm not saying all people from India or all VAs from India fit this category. However, many of the ones that I've come across do. And that is, they tend to be resistant to team culture. They're usually more self-starters, want to kind of push away and do their own thing. They like project-based work instead of having to work with a team or 9 to 5. I mean, can you blame them? A lot of us are entrepreneurs for those same reasons. Another thing that I've noticed is that since they're so entrepreneurial, they tend to work with you for a little bit, maybe commit to you over a few projects. And then from there, using the skills that they've learned, they might break away and try to do their own thing or hop to another employer. They don't really find their loyalties lying with any one specific employer. And then finally, let's talk about the third place where you can hire VAs, the Philippines. Now, Filipino people are some of my favorite people on this planet. They are loyal, family-oriented, caring, they're attentive, they're good communicators. Most of them are great with English and they have fantastic skills. I mean, I've met graphic designers that are better out there than some of the ones that I've worked with in America. Usually the pay rate for them is somewhere between $3 to $5 an hour, or 3 to 400 to 600 project based, depending on how many hours they're working each month. But the thing is, they're loyal, they're hardworking, and you can never go wrong with hiring a Filipino VA. I can't talk well enough about them. Now, some of the skills that Filipino VAs tend to be really good at is anything that's creative, from graphic design to video editing to copywriting to caption to even answering emails. They can take direction very, very well. They tend to work really, really hard, and they're loyal to the company that they're staying with. The team culture there is incredible. Every Filipino VA that I've ever worked with tend to communicate very well. They get along with each other. It's just really, really family oriented if you allow it to be. And I would suggest, if you hire any sort of VA, to really bring them onto your team and to not isolate them from your team, simply because it boosts morale, it helps them work harder, and it's just overall great for having this team dynamic that really works well, and having a system in place that is like a well-oiled machine in your business. However, just like any country, Filipino VAs also have their cons. And of course, this is again a generalist statement and doesn't apply to every single VA in the Philippines. However, what I tend to find is most of them are not self-starters or entrepreneurial. They're great at taking direction, but they also need a lot of direction from you, as opposed to the other two places. And the second thing is, you tend to not find as many coders or web developers or people that can do front end or back end web development from the Philippines. Let's move on to part two. Where do you find VAs? I've got a couple places where you can actually find virtual assistants for your business, and depending on what you're looking for and who you're looking for, it's probably better to go with one over the other. I'm going to list these off and I'll give you a small description about each one. Number one, Upwork. So Upwork is a great place, especially if you're looking for one-off projects to be done, whether it's something as big as building an entire website with a backend or something as small as 2 pieces of graphic design. Upwork is a place where you can put up a job and then either recommend people to apply to that job or have people search out your gig and then apply for it. Once you look at their credentials, you can compare one person to another and then pick the one that you would like to complete the job that you're asking. Number two, Fiverr. Fiverr is great, especially for quick things that you want done. In terms of work quality, it's kind of all over the board. Some people you will find are just doing gigs out there to make some money, and they're probably not really good at what they're doing. And others are fantastic at what they're doing. And really, it's just dependent on looking at some of their past samples. So no matter what gig you decide to use on Fiverr, make sure to look at some of their past samples of work they have before you make any decisions. However, you'll find people from all countries on Fiverr, but don't expect to actually bring them in your business, both with Upwork and Fiverr, simply because they have pretty strict limitations and protocols within Fiverr and Upwork from removing the people on those platforms and getting them on a Zoom call or bringing them into your business in some way. Number three, Facebook groups. Facebook groups are a gold mine for finding the kind of people that you want to find in any niche, in any industry, in any country. To find VA specifically, look for country name VA or look on agency specific Facebook groups. Those tend to have VAs looking through them all the time, and just put a post saying, hey, I'm looking for a virtual assistant, and you'll find people applying or directly DMing you on Facebook. Even go on graphic design Facebook groups or video editing Facebook groups or coding or web development Facebook groups, task specific Facebook groups for what you're looking for, and you'll find tons of virtual assistants just hanging out there, either looking for work, or you can put up a job post and they'll apply to it. To a lesser degree, there's one more secret spot that not a lot of people talk about. However, this one was told to me by my mentor, and I'm going to go ahead and share it with you guys. It's a little bit funny. There's a subreddit called r slave labor. Slave labor is really more done for one-off tasks, and it's exactly what it sounds like. You put up a job post, and then you'll find people applying for that job for minimum amounts of money. I mean, you can put up saying, hey, I need a 1,000-word article written and I'm willing to pay $5, and someone will probably apply for that job. And the funny thing is, these people don't tend to be from other countries. A lot of them are actually American as well, just maybe in a tight spot in Canada, maybe just in a tight spot, looking for some quick cash. And honestly, if you're going to go on Reddit on slave labor, I would suggest at least tipping them a little bit, because you never know what their situation is. The fourth place that you can look for VAs is in agencies. Now, there's plenty of agencies out there that offer virtual assistant placement, and depending on your parameters or what you're looking for in your business, these can be exceptional places to actually find a VA. Why? Because it'll save you the interview process. It'll save you having to filter through and find the right people already with the right skills. And this will save you a ton of time on the front end of trying to train the VA as well, because many great placement services also offer fully trained VAs. In fact, this is a subsect of what my business, Nomads Cast, does for podcasters and YouTubers. And then the fifth place that you can look for VAs is on online job boards. My favorite one to use is onlinejobs.ph. This is a fantastic place to actually put up a job description and then have a Filipino VA specifically apply for the job. And what you'll find is when you put up a job post, anywhere from 40 to 50 Filipino VAs will actually apply for that job. And this can get a little bit overwhelming. So in the next section here, I'm going to explain how you can filter through the best prospects and pick the VAs that fit the exact job description that you're looking for. Stay tuned. All right, let's move on to the next part of this video. How do you actually hire a VA, and what do you do to make sure that the best prospect available for you and your business? So I've got a very specific process I like to put any sort of VA through, and you may have a different process if you've hired VAs before, but what I'm about to tell you works for me, and it's worked exceptionally well for me to be able to filter through many VAs in a very short period of time and get the best prospects that usually stay with me for a long time. The first thing that you should do before you put up any sort of job posting on Facebook or a job board is to create a form for virtual assistants. Now, what do I mean by a form? This can be done on Google Forms, jotform.com, which is what I use, but it basically serves as a mini job application for a potential virtual assistant to go through before they get a chance to be interviewed. This jot form can have many questions relating to the task that you're looking for, from what is your experience, standard job interview questions such as how have you worked with past employers, to even mini exercises like, hey, write me a 4-sentence Instagram caption so I can take a look at how your writing is, or edit this photo here and attach it to the form. There's 2 questions that I always like asking no matter what position I'm hiring for when it comes to virtual assistants. The first one I like to call the dog exercise. So what I like to do is create a Loom video, which is just a video recording software, a 2 to 3 minute video that I place in the first question, asking people that are applying to my job to watch it. And in that video, I give them a small description about the job and the tasks that job will entail. And then at the end of that video, I like to sneak in a little keyword. Usually what I use is dog, D-O-G. And what I'll say is, hey, if you made it to this part of the video, be sure to put the word dog, D-O-G, at the end of the answer for this first question. Then when the jot form comes sent to my email or the Google form comes to my email, I check for the first response of that question and I see if the word dog is put at the end of it. And if it's not, I don't even look at the rest of the question. Call it sneaky, but it's really worked well for me so far. And what it tells me is that the person that was going through that job application can take direction very well. The second of those questions is filling out a personality test. Now, whether you tend to believe in Myers-Briggs or not is out of the question. What I've noticed is I tend to work with specific personality types better than the other personality types. So what I have every virtual assistant that goes through my job application do is take a Myers-Briggs test, usually on 16personalities.com, and then put in the blank what their 4 letters are. Once your potential VA candidate has filled out a jot form or a Google form or whatever form they filled out, make sure to sift through and look for the ones that best fit the profile of the candidate that you're looking. Don't cheap out on this part, because you know how big of a mistake it can be if you hire the wrong person. It can cost you time, it can cost you money. And I've definitely made this mistake plenty of times in the past, just going through a few applications and just picking one that looked good. Don't cheap out on this part. After you have a handful of VAs whose applications that you really liked, you bring them on for an interview. Go ahead and send them an email, say, hey, let's hop on a Zoom call, shoot over your calendar link and have them schedule a call with you. Make sure you block out maybe 2 to 3 days of doing this. Schedule it in between client calls or maybe towards the end of the night. The positive thing about working with VAs that work in a different time zone is that you can actually interview VAs after hours. So it won't come in the way of any client work or business work or anything that you really need to do while working in your business. From the interview round, the ones that you see that have potential, give them an exercise before you decide to bring them on board. This exercise can be really anything. So if you're looking for a video editor, show them a clip on YouTube that you want edited, and then give them some creative freedom to go and show you their creativity and create something that's really nice. If you are looking for a copywriter, perhaps have them write a 300-word summary over some sort of article or a video that you watched. If you're looking for a Facebook ads manager, access to your ads manager to a limited degree and have them run some Facebook ads for 10 or 15 bucks. If they pass that exercise with flying colors, bring them on for a second interview. Now, during this second interview, you kind of want to date them. You want to figure out what their goals, their ambitions are. See if you're a good fit for each other. Ask them what they're looking for when it comes to a job. Establish how much you're going to get paid, the hours, your requirements, your boundaries. Really divulge all of that, and you want to make sure you're as clear as possible about the opportunity. Once you've decided that they're really a good fit, this is when you bring them in for a trial period. I like to have my trial period somewhere around 2 weeks. This usually gives me ample time to understand if they're a good fit for my business, and not only that, if they're a good fit for the culture that I've established within my business. Can they work well with others? Can they take direction well? Are they communicative, etc.? After this trial period, if they've done a great job, then you really bring them on board and you give them a lot of responsibility, or as much responsibility as you want to give them. And from there, you really bring them into the culture, introduce them to all of the other employees that you have, if any. And yeah. However, make sure if during this trial period they did not pass, or they could not take direction well, or they just didn't do a great job, cut them. I cannot explain or stress the importance of how fast you should cut somebody within those first 2 weeks, because if not, and you decide to settle, or you feel like the cost sunk fallacy has come into place and you've already sunk too many hours into this, you're going to pay for it later on down the road. Do not settle when it comes to virtual assistants. There are plenty out there that can make your life easier rather than harder. This brings me to the final part of the video, and probably the most important. How do you manage VAs once you've actually hired them? So I've got a couple of things that I'm going to cover in this section of the video. I'm going to cover software, culture, best practices, and a few other things that are a bit out there you may not have thought about when it comes to actually managing a virtual assistant. First and foremost, I'd like to stress how important communication is, especially when you first hire a VA. The VAs, there are many out there that are entrepreneurial and self-starters, but there are many out there that are not, just like any person on this planet. Establish solid lines of communication and make sure you're talking to your VAs, especially in the beginning, at some point every single day. Even to this day, and I have a team of 8 VAs now, we have a daily meeting every single day, minus one day of the week, which is usually Saturday, because that's the day we all like to relax. Some software that can really help you communicate better includes Slack, Trello, Asana, Loom, and then Calendly to schedule any one-on-one meetings with your virtual assistants. The second thing to remember is that virtual assistants are people. There are so many virtual assistants out there that have had bad experiences with past employers and tend to not trust future employers because of this. Don't be that person. What I like to do with my VAs is give them bonuses on Christmas or time off with family or little things like that to show them that I care about them. Remember, as an employer, your employees are not working for you, you're working for your employees. And if you want hardworking, loyal, caring employees, then you got to be the same way back to them. Now, another small thing I like to cover is paying your VAs. You can either pay your VAs monthly or hourly. And depending on what your goals are and how many projects you have or what your business is about, one might be more beneficial than the other. If you're paying them a flat rate monthly, you don't really need to worry about any sort of time tracking software. But if you're paying them hourly like we do, you're better off actually tracking the time and making sure that you can get reports on the back end of where a VA is allocating their time, so you can slowly adjust them and guide them in a way that's more conducive for your business. Some time tracking software that I recommend are Clockify, because it's free, and Time Doctor, which costs, I believe, $50 a year. I might be wrong there, don't quote me on that, but somewhere around that range. Now, the benefits of having Clockify are that, well, of course, it's free. And B, it shows your VAs that you actually trust them. What they do is clock in and clock out. And what you get is a detailed report of where they're allocating their time and how long they're doing that for. Time Doctor, the positive that it has is that it does screen recordings and screenshots, and it shows you what the VA is actually working on the clock. However, from experience, to really use Time Doctor is if a virtual assistant breaks your trust. The way that I've always gone about it is start them off on Clockify. And if I feel like they're skimping on hours, or if I feel like they're BSing me, I'll move them to Time Doctor. If on Time Doctor I catch them BSing me again, then they're fired. But if on Time Doctor they're doing great work and they keep it solid for a month straight, I move them back onto Clockify. The best way to pay your VAs, now this is specifically for Filipino VAs. Unfortunately, I don't have any recommendations for VAs from Eastern Europe or from India because it's been a long time and I just used to use PayPal. But with Filipino VAs, the best way to pay them is using TransferWise. And that's because not only do you get less fees for actually paying them, but they also get a bigger cut of what you're paying them, whereas PayPal actually takes a ton of money. The last tip that I want to cover is a bonus tip for businesses that want to scale purely through virtual assistants or want to have a majority of their employees as virtual assistants. Establish team culture. I can't stress the importance of this enough. Make sure that you have a set of values that is ingrained in the heads of those virtual assistants. I know that sounds kind of brainwashy, but it's really, really important to have those values in place and make sure that you're following those values to the T so that your virtual assistants can look up to you and follow those values themselves. Also, a small little pro tip that I like doing with my virtual assistants, which I've noticed has definitely increased not only loyalty, but also productivity, is having weekly game nights or monthly game nights. What I like to do is actually sit down and have a meeting with all my VAs once a week these days and get on some sort of mobile game or a PC game and have all of us play this multiplayer game together. There's lots of laughs, it's a lot of fun, and yes, I pay for it, but the results and the ROI that I get from having that game night massively outweighs any money that I invest in that specific thing. So now you know the different kinds of VAs, where to find VAs, how to hire VAs, and then also how to manage VAs. Make sure you hit that subscribe button and ring that notification bell so that you're notified of my future videos that can help you grow and scale your online business. Overall, keep in mind that VAs are just people. Make sure you treat them well just like you would any employee. Other than that, happy scaling. Virtual. All right. Okay.